Okay, so we're meeting today with Dr. Raju Varanasi from Catholic Education and his colleague Gina Pieta, who is the data officer in Catholic Education. And we want to hear really how they use their learning analytics and how they use data to support student learning. So thank you very much for taking time to do this interview and tell us how you use the analytics and data. So maybe at the start you can just briefly tell me about your institution, your position in your institution.
Thank you, Vitamir, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to your wonderful initiative. We are a Catholic education system in Western Sydney. It's called the Diocese of Parramatta. So the Diocese of Parramatta spans from Granville to Blue Mountains, for those who know Sydney. And it stretches over nearly 100 kilometers from one end to another, which in our case spans 82 schools. Some are primary, some are secondary, and some are K to 12. Increasingly, we are K to 12, but we also have some 56 primary and 24 secondary and 2 K to 12s, and increasingly we are focusing on that. So we are a system of schools. My role, I'm the Director Data Intelligence, and which has, in our case, because our Executive Director, Greg Whitby, is very keen on data-informed practices and data-driven decision-making. And hence he has given us fairly very, if you can call ambitious titles, data intelligence. And Gina is the manager of data storytelling. That means actually manages the liaison with school executive teams, school leadership teams on how to use data and insights and what's trending, what's coming up in the dashboards and so on. And we'll come to dashboards in a second. Gina?
Thanks. Yes, this is a fairly new role in the organisation. So I've been working closely with Raju over the last 18 months, and now we're really starting to push the boundaries in terms of predictive analytics and using that with schools. And as Raju said, trying to really build the data capacity of our leaders and teachers in schools to be able to use those insights to improve learning and teaching for all students.
Great. So yeah, you mentioned already a couple of things I would like to, we're going to cover a bit later. So just the first thing, maybe, what drew you to the field of learning analytics? What would be the reasons why you were, doing these things?
We wanted to actually bring data to see the light of the day. We have a lot of data on attendance, behavior, performance, resourcing, and I'll show a little bit of this in a minute. And that actually has powered the journey towards data-informed practices in schools. And this framework, the 6 lens framework, I actually developed in quest of the research which eventuated into a PhD. It's a PhD on education systems use of data, meta-analysis, and all that stuff. So, so we were interested in analytics because it is the most important lever within a school system. Outside the school system, you have policy, funding, whatever. But it's we call it it's a pulse of the system.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you more real-time insights, what's really happening there, rather than when people say that it's happening or you see on a higher level. So I guess you're showing the visual of dashboards, and how are you using analytics in your institution? Can you give us a bit of a background on that?
Yeah, and please add in, Gina. See, imagine you are a principal in a school and you want to know about your student performance. I will just go at high level, but you can actually go at a local level. So you can actually see that it is a role-based access, and you see whether it is our interventions. Everyone understands reading recovery, and you want to know about text levels, and you get real time. You see it is hovering and spinning into real time, and you can actually see real time data in how many students have come into what. This, if you are in one particular school, you can actually get that school's data. You see the distribution on this school is very different to the distribution in this school, and things like that. So, and we give these dashboards. I have an analytics team that Gina and I work closely with. It's 4 data analysts and a manager. And we give a little bit of understanding of how to use a dashboard. So this is just but one, but I'll now give different ones. You talk about tell them from me, which is a feedback on what students, parents, and teachers are telling about our school system. You can get various schools data, and we can actually get understanding at system level where the strengths are, where the opportunities for improvement, and we guide them with some initial information how to use this data. Gina manages the project, so I'd like to ask Gina to add a bit more.
Look, we're now starting to socialize all of the dashboards and the data analytics across our schools. And even our executive team are now using data and analytics and visualizations in terms of their own work as an executive team to monitor progress. And so we're finding now that more schools are coming on board. Schools have always been collecting data, but it may be in a spreadsheet, it could be in a Google Doc. The visualization is powerful because it's accessible, and in a very short amount of time, you're able to see some of the trends coming out. And our work is now to build stories around individual schools and students to be able to really move the agenda along.
So you can see that there are 6 lenses, and I'm just gone into these into the lens of school performance. And without going too much detail, you can already see that there are bar graphs, line graphs, pie graphs, circular graphs, and so on. And you can filter. The logic is like this. The top 3 lenses, teacher, school, and student, are what I call the important entities in a school system: teacher, student, school, right? And the other 3, family, community, and regulators, are the 3 external entities that actually influence the schools and the student learning. So the student is in the center. There are 3 lenses from inside, 3 lenses from outside. It provides a 360-degree view on any aspects of learning. So in a way, we have not only just given data, but we have given data in a framework with bringing a holistic view of the school and the system and the learner. So you start with system, go to school, go to scholastic year, go to the student. Drill down.
So this is really great. So one question I have about this, and this looks great. I mean, in terms of visualizations and what you developed, and totally agree with the view and the needs to be part of the framework. What, for example, from my own practice, we see there is a problem of integrating these tools into somebody's practice. For example, you develop a dashboard and everything, and the teacher says, "Oh yeah, this looks cute. This is great. This is fantastic." And they say fantastic, and then you come 3 months later, when did you use it? They never use it. And it's not about that the tool is bad. It's not. It's more about how do you find time to integrate these things into your daily practice? And do you really know how to use it? In a sense, it looks nice, but how to translate into real action, right? Something that they can use right away that day to help them with the assignment. If they do that, yes, they will be using it, right? So your views on that?
Absolutely. And Gina works regularly with the schools on that. Before I give it to Gina, I just want to tell you, we even monitor analytics on analytics. So who is using?
That's important bit, exactly. So that's a part of a monitoring of the adoption of a tool. If we think of analytics as any other tool, right? How do you monitor? What do you see from that? Are teachers using that daily, or do you really need some? Do you have, I don't know, I'm just taking additional trainings and things like that. What was how's your adoption process of something like this?
So Vitamir, I think this is a universal problem across education, which is how do teachers with a very busy schedule and an overcrowded curriculum find time to use the data? And I think that comes from leadership of the school in being able to make time for schools to have those discussions collaboratively in teams, to look at the data and to be able to understand it, unpack it, and then use the data to take some sort of action to improve learning and teaching. What we've been doing, my colleague and I in the data team have been doing over the last term, and this is really new, but we've been going out and having those conversations with the leadership team, taking them through the dashboards and essentially opening up the discussion around how data can be used at that school level without being prescriptive, but that is something. But certainly our initial feedback is that the schools that we've been to have been very receptive in relation to the data. What we have said to them is that you need to make time to be able to use the data and to have those data conversations. That's the first point.
Yeah. So one thing I would like your students or your faculty to discuss this, if not take this a little bit of our experience. Do not make every teacher to use data. Teachers need to use insights. It could so happen that the school leadership unpacks the insights. Hey, in reading, it's like this. In attendance, it is like this, whatever. Once the school executive form a bit of an understanding on the insights where they need to improve, they can talk to the teachers. Do not expect, if you have 50 teachers in your school, don't expect 50 teachers to go through all these dashboards. That's not the intent. It should be use case related. If they're having attendance problems, they should go into the attendance dashboard. That is the executive, school executive. Then they should have an understanding with the teachers. Hey, teachers, years 8 and 9 are actually having attendance problems. Let's have a discussion. Why? It doesn't happen in 7, it doesn't happen in 11, 12. We all know that. But in 8, 9, 10, there are, and so my suggestion and my advice to the students of your course who are school leaders or budding school leaders to actually emphasize insights rather than raw data.
Exactly. So the problem with the dashboard, it's not a dashboard itself, but it really requires big data literacy, almost to be a data scientist. Oh, let me filter out this. And then if I cross over with this and then do that, yeah, excellent. That's great if you can do that, but you cannot expect everybody to do that. And they should use insight. Now, if the dashboard, I mean, we probably are not at that stage, but maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now, there might be a dashboard that every teacher could use, but the dashboard will provide insight, right? For example, after the class, student engagement in the classroom. For example, they could have access to something like that, but it wouldn't be a data science tool like most of the dashboards of today, which really require you to okay, what is the insight? What is this thing telling me? What is the story that I need to figure out? And that's hard. That I see your point exactly. If you we have at university the same problem. There are certain dashboards that are fantastic. if you really have a reason to use them and find insights on an everyday level, absolutely no point in using them. So can I ask you, so couple, what would be the key reasons why you used analytics, like some of the real problems that you used it to solve? Was it attendance or calibration of a system or anything like that? What would be the uses for you at the moment?
The use cases for system impact are different to the school. We will concentrate on the school because your audience is school leaders.
Yes.
And that's why it's timely that I put the class dashboard without actually giving out too much about our students. Gina and one of our colleagues, Amanda, worked on it. So I'll ask Gina how this is actually influencing the class and the cohort and the school.
So what we've done is we've built a secondary and a primary dashboard, which is we've been able to pull different data sets into one dashboard. So we can look at a school level, at a class level, cohort, and then drill down to a student level. So you've been asking really around what the benefit for the teacher is, and the benefit for the teacher at using this dashboard is that in a very short amount of time, they can pick up how that cohort has been tracking over time if the students have come from our primary feeder schools. And so coming into year 7, those year 7 teachers will be able to basically go back and have a look at grades and standardized testing results from year 3 if they've remained in our system, which is really powerful because the year 7 teacher then gets an idea and understanding of who that student is academically, even before they come into that school, into their classroom. And so it also provides drill down in terms of behaviours, diagnoses, and we're trying to pull more data into these dashboards to allow teachers to be able to very quickly understand, particularly in secondary, when you've got lots of students coming through every day, to understand what the students' needs are and how best to address them.
Yep, great. Yep, exactly. So this is we already had one project with one of the local schools, and they actually mentioned a handover. That's the term they use of between year levels, and especially between primary to secondary, where basically you come having no clue about the student. And if you could have a dashboard, that's a perfect time, for example, for seeing student progression over time. For example, it might be that this is an excellent student, but in year 7, there are all kinds of reasons why things can go wrong. Is it transition? Is it, was he showing the problems for the maybe last 2 years? Maybe there's a family issues and whatnot. There are millions of things that could be the case. And if you don't have the bigger picture, as you're saying, like the holistic view of a student, while you're going to make a wrong assumption about the student. Yeah, this is fantastic. So in terms of adoption of this, what do you see as the main challenges of adopting analytics? Is that the training, integration of the technologies, or what? What do you think will be the main challenges of adoption of analytics? Because that's a big part.
Good question. Adoption by school leaders and teachers is based on the partly usability, but more importantly, the context that they are facing. If they don't have a context on well-being, you can give 10 well-being dashboards, that doesn't make anything. Same thing, if they don't have attendance problems, don't try to push attendance dashboards. They are a high-performing school, their attendance is very good. They are more worried about how many will come in the top 2 bands in science and maths and whatever. But there are schools where there are other issues. Well-being is an issue. Reading text levels in a primary school, in a suburban catchment, and so on. So my request to your audiences is that this is not a uniform one-size-fits-all dashboards. This is what you're seeing is a culmination of a system-level set of dashboards. But you drill down, and you drill down by context. Suppose you say, I want to know about NAPLAN, I'm just making NAPLAN as a thing. You actually can say, okay, I have some NAPLAN school snapshots, and I can see all the NAPLAN data. It is color-coded, growth and value added, and so on and so forth. So the adoption is based on context in a school and in the system. If you want to provide leadership these days, you got to use data and evidence. It is not self-claim. It is not rhetoric. It is not your do-good statements. You got to have evidence like this. I don't go to any meeting without opening some of these things to inform myself as the meeting is going on.
One interesting point there is, I mean, when you say data-driven decision making, many fields change completely. I can give you one good example. For example, for Formula One, whenever the car is racing around the track, there is a data being sent to a server somewhere who simulates the race. He simulates the race 1,000 times. Current situation, you're, I don't know, 5 seconds ahead or whatever is the current state. It says, should you go to pit stop or not? And it will really make, it's not a decision by the coach or a third sense by the driver or anything like that. It's a very clear data decision. And you often have people who are coming in the field saying, no, you don't have a clue, I know better. And so this idea of resistance to the use of data to make decisions, especially probably, I might say, you know, teachers who come from the different philosophy to the teaching and saying, no, I don't need this data. I know my students. I don't need your dashboards. And you know, I mean, so that's one thing where you know, it's hard, almost like a cultural change to data decision, to introduce data-driven decision making. So any advice on how to do that, like how to change that culture?
Yeah, we'll give our perspectives. The way we changed the teacher perceptions is, I know everything about the student. You sit in an office miles away. How would you know? The thing is like this. There are, in a way, the data is the sensors of the student. Okay. And if I have all the sensors, where I sit is not the problem. You take, you know, in areas like telemedicine, remote, whatever. The important thing is, if I have the sensors, I can make some sense out of it, right? And that's what we say. In fact, we turned them around by saying, we have predicted HSC results, the year 12, with 93% accuracy at the model level. By each subject, you can actually see, suppose I won't show the school lens, but I'll actually show, suppose you say biology, and you see if you're on a 45-degree line, you are actually predicting well. And you can see that in the area of biology in female, they're all hovering around plus minus 2-3 marks. Now, when we show this to the teachers, they say, oh, what it means is, if you can tell me 2 years before, that means I have 2 years to help them to even do better.
Exactly, and that's the point. Telling me they're gonna fail after, you know, who cares? Like, that's what's gonna happen anyway. So nothing can be done about it. So that's good to know. But I will know it anyway within a week or so. So that doesn't really bring me much value.
Gina has a
yeah.
So we often say to schools that the predictive allows you to identify a problem before it becomes the problem.
Exactly.
That's the power of the data and intervention.
Yes. So that's the hook for the teachers, Vitamir. The moment the teachers know this is not to gauge me, not to monitor me, but to give more time to help the student and show real progress. And teachers exist to support students. Everything else is actually just a additional mechanism to help that. If that is not, they don't want it, you're right. But actually we have turned the whole game saying, I'm giving you as much and in time advance, because there are a lot of school systems who are just living on postmortem. I'm trying to say, no, this is predictive. That means before the event, as Gina said. So in a way, data is now a lever to forewarn
Exactly.
rather than a postmortem. So do that and get very good.
Now you mentioned a good point, and that's the data to monitor me. And that's often the one of the, when we did, for example, even at university level, some studies were done about, okay, what are the worries by instructors and teachers. Well, one of them big is, well, this is going to be used to judge me across, look, you're the worst performing science teacher in the school or the system or whatever. So here unless you do something, you're going to lose your job or whatever. So and that's a big, that's a serious thing for me. It's not to dismiss. So how do you make use that the data is used ethically, right? So one thing is, there are two people who might be worried a lot about that: teachers and parents. Students probably not so much. They're anyways young and used. The data is being collected by Instagram and other places all the time, so not so worried. But teachers and parents are two groups who will be. So how do you make sure and ensure that there is no issue? Then you're not going to do that, and so on.
Would you like to say? Yeah, basically trust and relationship. What we do is, I think we had our moments. Please don't misunderstand. There are times when they said, "Oh, what do you mean predictive? That means I don't know what I'm doing, or that you are trying to say that." You know more than me. I go to the classroom every day. All those, we had those moments, but that just comes out in the wash. And then now they realize there is something about longitudinal data. And, school systems are lucky because retail and telecommunications and restaurants, they might have 1 or 2 years data. We have arguably 13 years of continuous data. And if we don't make it, in the most formative stages of a child's life, yeah. And if we don't make use of it, who will? And we are using it not to label, but to support, to avoid an untoward event, avoid a problem.
So do you have a specific or say, ethical framework or certain set of policies? That do schools have set of policies? Like, if we, this dashboard won't be used to, make staffing decisions, for example, or things like that. Is that something necessary yeah?
Yeah, would you like to? Yeah, we have policies on information security, role-based access, privacy. And in fact, once you start on the trust building relation, that's what Gina's the data story actually gives the flavor of trust and relationship building and ability to support students, rather than I'm the big brother, I'm watching you, I have everything about you. There would be apprehensions, please don't misunderstand, but those apprehensions can be quelled with what we call systemness. Systemness means we're showing in our behaviors, I'm not monitoring their usage. A principle, it is not that more is merry. More data use is not merry. Data use in context, data use as you are wondering what happened to little Joe. Why is it that this term the attendance is fallen down when the last 2 terms it was good? They ask those hypothesis questions and they use it. And that's why you get more trust.
We don't come in, data shouldn't be used in a punitive way. And I think that's the main concern for teachers. And it's probably because, historically teachers have used results in a punitive way against children. That's a mindset that we need to change within education and to develop a new narrative, which is that the data is there to inform. And as our executive director always says, it is powerful. It's a powerful tool in the hands of teachers, but it will always be a tool. And at the end of the day, there is a human element, and that is the professionalism and expertise of the teachers being able to use the tool in a way that improves student learning.
Exactly. Often will be the questions that we notice is, oh, this is going to replace the teacher. No, it won't. It was never the idea, because it cannot. As you're saying, that there's this part of human element that's impossible to remove, and exactly, that's the only way.
I'll give you a practical example, Vitam. When Google's maps came, drivers could question, are you questioning my driving proficiency? Are you questioning my map reading ability? There might be one of those things, but actually now they say, oh, it's better. I know that today it's going to take 35 minutes to reach that. I better tell them I'll be 5 minutes late because I thought it's good. So in a way, human habits change with trust, with data, with certain new affordances. And this is a new affordance. 5 years from now, 2 years from now, there will be more trust on if we implement it properly. And I think we are on a good road here, thanks to our leadership team, the Diocese of Parramatta, all the leaders, and I have special thanks to our directors and school principals, because all the questions, and you rightly asked those, what I call hotspots. You have to cross the hotspots with some dialogue. Not by rules, not by policies, but by dialogue. And we had our dialogues. In fact, we started this in 2016. We are already 5 years on, and we have shown a lot of maturity.
That's an interesting thing that you mentioned, because typically when some reports are talking about how much time do you need to develop the culture, it's typically about 5 years to develop the culture. Yeah. And
Gina has to go, so just
no worries. Thanks a lot, Gina, for we're going to be, I guess, finishing soon. So just a couple of so when you mention dialogue and trust, we notice one thing is using other teachers as trust builders, right? The early adopters. So is that how are you? Well, how would you introduce analytics? Did you have certain set of champions of the early adopters and people who start, and then they do work for you in a sense of promoting the system, or you had a different model?
Actually, we obviously the adoption concept is important here. Firstly, the leadership has to adopt and actually listen. So the leadership has to say, if there are apprehensions about, is this my performance monitor? Is it about this? Even the principals can ask. Once the principals knew that we are enabling them, and they are actually using whichever context they are in, there are parent-teacher interviews, or what you call student voice. And if I showed you a dashboard in the class and they want to actually have a conversation with the parent, they don't have to ask someone to say, can you, Olivia's parents are coming, can you show me all the, no, it is there. So the principal can turn the screen, see exactly only Olivia's profile, and then turn the screen to parent and say, I'm concerned on attendance and this and this. So you build rapport. We have not given the login as yet. We have only given login to teachers and principals. A teacher can see within the school, not just their scholastic year or whatever, they can see across the school. Because year 7 student will become year 8 student very soon. So why not the year 8 teacher know a little bit more, whether it's subject or class or home room or whatever those terminologies that are used. We give at school level, that means they can only see within that school. And there are guidelines of acceptable usage, policy, all that. I think the foundational level is important, ethics, policies, and so on. What is important is it usable? Is it real time? Is it contextual? And is it granular? Is it granular? And we are addressing that. And in fact, I've written a chapter in a book, which was published in the US on this framework and the use cases. And in fact, this real-time access, many other dioceses and many other school systems, that's why Gary was asking. Basically, we conceptualized it, we implemented it, we executed it, we are now using it, and we moved into the a predictive era rather than a prospective. So all these are the new things that we are doing, and more can be done. I'm not saying.
Okay, so in that sense, probably some of the last question would be, what do you see in order to advance? Like, what would be the things that, how do you see analytics in the next 5 years, let's say, in terms of what would be the new things that we need to solve? What will be the hot topics, and will that be predictions or AI or VR? Or
you already answered it exactly. Machine learning. We have done 2 models of machine learning. One for predicting student performance in HSC. One to predict student exits. When do I know when a student is going to leave our school and go to another school, whether it is another school within the diocese or elsewhere? There are actually what you call, we talk about lead indicators and lag indicators. There are lead indicators when you actually, a parent decides to, not all are controllable, not all are visible and collected in the system. But for example, attendance, marked dip in attendance, you can take the thresholds, and that is telling something is wrong either in health or in the attitude to school, particularly in the secondary years. Fee payment, if there is a fee payment. We are not too obsessed with fees, but there is a nominal fee. You can have behavioral sensor. So we have used that, and we predicted, here the accuracy is not as good because you can still exit a system because the parents have moved houses due to whatever preferences, or It could be that economically due to COVID and other circumstances, they decided to move and join with their other family members or whatever. So there could be other reasons why they move house, but we know that moving school is part of sometimes moving house. And we are actually using exit analysis. The point is, in 5 years' time, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it will be a more predictive rather than what I call, postmortem era. And we will be moving into bigger things, personalized learning based on learning analytics, resource allocation, funding based on learning analytics. Well-being becomes a stronger monitor because well-being is actually a lead indicator for learning. Because if a child is not happy with something, there is a problem. All those things are coming out in the research and also in practice. So I think there are very, very strong good days for school systems to actually be not only a good adopter, but a leading practice across various sectors. And school systems, in a small way, in our case, we have made that journey already started.
And maybe as great, this is great. Exactly what we wanted to know. How are you seeing the changes as you already started and did a lot in this area? So I'll maybe as the last one say, what do some last advice to give to the teachers and school leaders who want to start journey with learning analytics? Some of the key takeaways from your experience.
Firstly, I want to urge, plead, and assure both principals, school leaders, and of course also teachers that you do see the human in the data. You do sense about various angles about what is happening to the student and their learning, and other aspects of the student, which could be well-being, which could be behavior, which could be health, which could be, you can actually triangulate all these things and make a holistic understanding of so the potential is immense. Yes, there are checks and balances. There are do's and don'ts. There are ethics issues. There are bias issues. There are time issues and so on. But none of these are so insurmountable if you have the dialogue within your school. So ours is school-centric, context-centric implementation. Ours is not audit, accountability, monitoring, supervision, big brother stuff. That is not the mindset. That's why we got the traction we got from the principals, because we had that dialogue with, and they're asking for more, to be frank. And I got another 20 variables, features that they want us to engineer and see that we can use in predictive analytics. Such is the knowledge our principals carry and our teachers carry. They are coming up now, hey, in this predictive analytics, can you use the number of HSC markers? Can you actually factor in whether they have a part-time job? Because that might or might not affect. So this is the golden opportunity in a way for us, that the teachers and principals not only adopted it, and now asking for adapting it to meet their needs, which is brilliant. We are lucky.
Fantastic. Exactly. So yeah, having the view on the context, having the human view, and being aware of all of the myriads of challenges that they are there. No, great. So thank you a lot for this interview. This was great, and I think this will be very, very useful for not just our students, but for others as well who are starting in this journey to learn about analytics, because there's not many examples of adoptions like you have, and system-wide use, and that will be quite useful. So thank you very much.